The phrase rags to riches is often used to describe the classic stories of success, the ones we celebrate, the tales of those who rise from nothing to build empires. But there's another side to that coin, a cautionary tale. The journey from riches to rags. Many wealthy Americans who once lived lavishly died penniless, their fortunes gone, their legacies tarnished, and their stories a striking reminder of how fleeting wealth can be. Today, we're diving into this fascinating and sobering phenomenon, exploring the lives of several individuals who embodied the heights of American opulence, only to fall victim to financial ruin. Let's start with a name that many of you might recognize, Howard Hughes. Once one of the wealthiest and most enigmatic figures in America, Howard Hughes was a pioneer in aviation and filmmaking, with an estimated fortune of nearly $1.5 billion during his prime, a staggering amount in the early 20th century. Known for his eccentricity and obsession with perfection, Hughes lived as lavishly as money could permit. He bought entire fleets of airplanes, produced some of Hollywood's most daring films, and indulged in a lifestyle that rivaled royalty. But it wasn't Hughes's spending that led to his collapse. It was his mental health. Plagued by severe obsessive-compulsive disorder and paranoia, Hughes withdrew from society and lived in isolation, famously boarding up in hotels, seldom seen by the public. His empire began crumbling under mismanagement. The businesses he had once run with precision faced lawsuits, declining revenues, and mounting debts. By the time of his death in 1976, Hughes was gaunt, malnourished, and unrecognizable. While his name still carried weight, his personal fortune had dwindled to near irrelevance, lost to a series of bad decisions and neglect. Next, we turn the spotlight to Barbara Hutton, the poor little rich girl. Born into unimaginable wealth as the heiress to the Woolworth fortune, Barbara Hutton inherited over $70 million when she turned 21, worth billions in today's dollars. With her immense wealth came intense public scrutiny, and Hutton's life became a tragic soap opera. She was married 7 times, each husband seemingly taking advantage of her kindness and naivety. Lavish spending on palatial estates, jewelry, and extravagant parties became her coping mechanism for a life devoid of emotional security. By the time she passed away in 1979, Hutton had virtually no money left. Left emotionally shattered and financially drained, her inability to manage her inheritance and the toxic relationships in her life turned her overwhelming fortune into dust. Her story became an emblem of how wealth cannot buy happiness or personal stability. Another major figure in the story of riches to rags is none other than Willie Sutton, albeit for slightly different reasons. Sutton, famously known as one of America's most prolific bank robbers during the early 20th century, lived his life surrounded by and obsessed with money. While you might not call him rich in the conventional sense, Sutton gained notoriety for stealing millions over the course of his career, living like a king in between stints in prison. But Sutton's lifestyle wasn't sustainable. He gambled away much of his stolen money, spent exorbitantly on temporary pleasures, and faced mounting legal fees for defense lawyers each time he was rearrested. When he finally left prison for good in the 1970s, Sutton was broke, living quietly in a small apartment with little to his name. He died in relative obscurity, far removed from the heady days of stolen riches. Now let's explore a story that may surprise you: the life of Michael Jackson, the king of pop. While Michael Jackson is remembered as one of the most successful and culturally influential artists in history, his finances were less legendary. At the height of his fame, Jackson earned hundreds of millions of dollars, bolstered by record-breaking album sales, sold-out tours, and endorsement deals. His home, Neverland Ranch, was a playground for extravagance, a sprawling estate complete with amusement park rides and exotic animals. But Jackson's spending habits were insatiable. He purchased jewelry, cars, artwork, and designer clothing at an alarming rate. And paired with mounting legal fees from lawsuits and settlements, his financial health devolved rapidly. By the mid-2000s, Jackson was drowning in debt, reportedly owing upwards of $500 million. To sustain his lifestyle, he mortgaged his assets, including the rights to his famous music catalog. When the star unexpectedly passed away in 2009, his estate was in chaos. A tragic end for someone who had achieved world-conquering fame, but failed to rein in his personal finances. Perhaps one of the most surprising and devastating cases of riches to rags involves Eike Batista, once considered one of the richest people not just in America, but in the world. A Brazilian-American businessman, made billions in the 2000s through investments in oil, mining, and various ventures. At his peak, Batista flaunted his wealth with unimaginable extravagance, famously parked his luxury cars inside his living room, and boasted he would soon become the world's richest man. But fortune, as they say, is fickle. Batista's empire was built on speculative investments that crumbled when the commodities market crashed. His businesses defaulted on enormous loans, and his wealth evaporated almost overnight. But that wasn't the worst part. Batista was later convicted of insider trading and corruption, leaving his reputation in shambles alongside his bank account. Once worth $30 billion, Batista ended up with a negative net worth, a remarkable rise and fall that remains one of the most extreme cases of financial mismanagement in modern history. These stories, while tragic, share a common thread. Wealth, while powerful, is never guaranteed to last. Whether through poor financial management, personal tragedy, or external forces beyond one's control, the Americans we've highlighted today serve as cautionary tales for anyone chasing riches without a plan to sustain them. It's easy to focus on the allure of wealth, the glittering success, the luxury, the freedom. But these stories remind us of something deeper, that wealth doesn't always equate to stability or fulfillment. So the next time you dream of wealth unimaginable, remember this. Money may come and go, but the lessons learned from these tales are timeless. And perhaps the greatest fortune of all is wisdom.